But, you know, I mean, being on a news fast doesn't mean cutting oneself off from the world. It is cutting myself off from a certain kind of information and a certain way of thinking and opening myself up to other sources of information that may not be deemed newsworthy, but are actually really important. Because when I read the news, even if I'm reading like quote both sides of an issue, there's still an agreement there that this is the issue. That here's what is important to talk about, and here's what isn't. And there's a lot, uh, in this world, in the human drama, that is not considered newsworthy. So it's been really good to tap into other sources of information, because otherwise I go crazy, like, yeah. And I think like there's a natural revulsion uh, against like something that isn't nourishing you, like poison. Like the body naturally uh, wants to expel poison from it. So I was reaching that point where like even the stuff that I agreed with, it just felt like poison, you know. So I took a little break from it, and yeah, going back in with more intention. And there's like the more subtle news of like what information do you pick up when you stand outside for 10 minutes feeling the wind, you know, um, or watching geese fly across the sky. Like they transmit something to me. There's information all around us in the world. There are other cultures on this earth that believe that you can learn a lot more from those things than you can from watching your television. In the modern context, we tend to tune out most of that information. So we're walking around with a very limited data set, and that data set is kind of programmed for despair. Like reality is built from stories too, built from agreements. I would say more than even than stories. It's built from agreements, and the information universe is also resolving into separate bubbles. Like people in one bubble never see the information that people in another bubble are seeing. They just have no idea, and vice versa. Like when I happen to tune into CNN or something like that, I'm like shocked almost. I'm like, what reality are you living in? Sometimes it brings to mind the Iraqi weapons of mass destruction hoax that at the time, to many of us, to me, to many on the left, it seemed utterly transparent that this was a manufactured pretext for war. And even like when they were talking about it on the news, I was like, hold on, you guys don't really believe this, do you? You're pretending to believe that you're actually scared of Saddam Hussein and the weapons of mass destruction, but come on here, you don't really believe it, do you? And I don't think they did. And I don't think that the people pushing the war narrative believed it either. I don't think anybody actually believed it. But nonetheless, the pretense of belief was enough to write a ticket to war. And then, a few years later, 5, 10 years later, turns out that it was entirely fabricated. The document it was based on was a forgery, an obvious forgery, et cetera, et cetera. But was there ever a reckoning that said, oh, the news media is geared to the manufacture of consent, the manufacture of facts, of a narrative. So let's look at how that happened and not let it happen again. No, none of that happened. And people somehow, like, the next pretext for war that comes along, everyone believes it, and this is what a lot of what's going into the COVID narrative and the manufacturing of a consensus around what we as a society need to do. Yeah, like where's the skepticism and where's the rebellion and where's the questioning of authority that's supposed to be done, especially by young people? Yeah, but I've noticed in the last couple of years, it's been the young people, the teenagers, who have been, in general, the most conforming. like like when no one else was wearing masks anymore, like I'd see groups of teenagers, like walking on the beach wearing masks. And yeah, I to this day I don't really understand what happened to youthful rebellion.